In this Community Spotlight interview, we're chatting with Shannon Hoover. Over the last 10 years, Shannon and his wife Maria have been working to foster innovation through the fusion of arts and technology, having founded multiple businesses with the same, including the Calgary-based Endeavour Arts Gallery and international wearable tech fashion show Make Fashion. Today, we're talking about their one-of-a-kind Calgary-based makerspace, Fuse 33, which gives creatives access to a comprehensive workshop, Metalshop, sewing lab, 3D printer studio, laser cutters, CNC, and so much more. So Shannon, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
That's great to have you on. So makerspaces have been around for a few years, but for those who aren't familiar with the term, what's a makerspace?
Well, you kind of covered it in your intro. I kind of like to describe it as like a gym with lasers, if that makes any sense. So it's a place where you can go to. People have monthly memberships, and then they can come, and instead of working out like you would do in a gym, members are able to use laser cutters, 3D printers, all the things that you described. So it's or maybe like a co-working space with 3D printers and sewing machines. Yeah, it's a big kind of open collaborative space that has lots of really cool tools in it.
Okay, awesome. So it sounds like, you can have your home gym, or you can have, your gym membership that you go to, and the advantage really is that you get access to some awesome equipment that you wouldn't necessarily have at home. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, so like lots of people have shops in their garage, and they might have like a table saw and routers and that sort of stuff. But it's not many people have access to like a 24-inch planer or a 4x8 CNC or a laser cutter or a industrial sewing machine or an embroidery machine or like large format 3D printer. All those things are just available for what we try and keep as a very low monthly cost. Like we have about $500,000 worth of tools in there, so it's not something that people can easily access on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't. Most people kind of have $500,000 kicking around for whatever toys their hearts desire.
Space for it in Calgary, right? Like it's real estate's expensive, so we have
exactly.
8,500 square feet in the shop, so it's a decent size to work.
It's sounding like it's a great place for hobbyists, but they're not the only ones who would benefit from that kind of membership. What advantages do you see kind of business owners getting out of a space like that?
Yeah, so we're probably about half and half between kind of people that run businesses and hobbyists. And what we've seen, and this is really the reason why we built the space, is we've seen several people that started as hobbyists and have turned it into their career. So from my perspective, the kind of founding principle for the space was we wanted to create a space where people could get paid to do what they're passionate about. And so we've had people come into the space. We had one guy that came in and took our cutting board class and learned to make cutting boards, and then within like a month he was online and making products to sell them. So he just came in, took one class to learn some things, and then just kind of grew it from there. And maybe I'm not sure if he's like running his full-time business now, but he's at least subsidizing his income. There are several people that do run their businesses full-time out of the space, and we're now looking at bringing on programming that will help people do business development within the space as well. So, it's one thing to have the workspace for it, but it's also another thing to learn how to, to get investors and to work with banks and all the other business stuff that is needed.
Okay, that's fantastic. So it sounds like you've got a combination of like skills-based workshops, but also kind of business-based workshops.
Well, to be fair, during COVID, the workshops have been very limited. We've only been doing one-on-one training, but we're desperately hoping for the world to open up again. And maybe by the time people see this, it will be. And at that point, our goal is to have a much wider variety of workshops and courses. And there's lots of groups in the city that provide entrepreneurial, partnerships and support. And so what we're looking to do is partner with some of those organizations to provide services to the members.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And that definitely ties in with what I know of Fuse being very community-based. It's not just something where it's like, you kind of hold into it and it's like, no, this is ours. You guys are somebody who kind of opens up your doors to the community, tries to bring in, as many community organizations as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. We're one of my friends says this thing a lot. He's like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, build a team. And Fuse kind of allows for that. You step in and there's a team there. So there's a whole bunch of people that have diverse knowledge and lots of experience and are very collaborative.
Okay, that's great. Are they other members of the space? Like, do you end up collaborating with the kind of other members, or is it kind of full-time Fuse people?
No, it's the space is, in fact, like everybody in the space is basically a member in the space. So Marie and we use the space for our own projects as well, in theory, although in the last 2 years we really haven't had time for that. But the space is staffed primarily by our volunteers who are members of the space. And I think that when people come to the space in the beginning, it doesn't take very long for people to realize that there's something special there, that there's opportunity to change people's lives and to build things that that seemed impossible before. And so we have a lot of people that want to just kind of get involved. And so our volunteers are very much those people. They're people that love to work with people and help people and learn from each other. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome community to be a part of. So knowing that your kind of background was in make fashion, is this kind of, did the Fuse community kind of grow out of the make fashion community, or how did that community start?
Yeah, I would say the Fuse community grew out of the maker community. Although, to be fair, most of the members that we have in the space now, they weren't involved in either the maker community or make fashion. So what we're seeing is I believe everybody's a maker, and just because we did things that supported makers in the past doesn't mean that's the community that we're there for. We're kind of there for people that have not yet discovered that that they have these passions, or they have these, we had one guy, a volunteer, come in, or somebody come in just yesterday, and he wanted to have a tour of the space, and he wants to learn to weld. And I said, okay, so what's your background? What's your experience? He goes, nothing. I really want to work with metal. I'm like, so you have no training? I'm like, no. And he's like, is that a problem? I'm like, no, that's great. Like, the one thing that you need is passion. You don't need a history in it. You don't need, you come in here, and so we've paired him up with one of our volunteer instructors. So another member in the space that does this thing for a living, right? That's key. And so they're going to do a workshop together, I think next Saturday. And yeah, like we'll see if the reality matches up with the way he imagines it, but all the resources are there for him to, to kind of to turn that imagination into something real. So yeah, I don't think like, it certainly didn't hurt that we had people in the community that are kind of predisposed to this, and those people have been big supporters. But almost everybody that uses the space, they're just anybody that was like, the comment that we hear all the time is, we didn't know this was possible, right? Or we didn't know this place existed. So that's really who our people are.
That's awesome. So how did they end up finding you if they had no idea that you were there?
Yeah, it's we've done a terrible job of advertising. So a lot of it's word of mouth. We've done some things that have got us a little bit of press, like during COVID, we started manufacturing PPE, and we got some press about that. And we did some of our members did some large projects for Chinook Blast, the art show that was in February. And we got some press about that. So people kind of like, they hear about the space, and then they Google it, and then they come and check it out. And you can see that their kind of journey has been one out of curiosity. But yeah, we desperately need to get the word out better, for sure. It's not so like we're not at capacity, but it's not so much that we need this to grow. It's just that I think the community needs this. I'd like to see a dozen spaces like this. I'd like there to be, as many maker spaces as there are Walmarts. There sure should be. Well, there should be twice as many, right? Or maybe as big as the Walmarts, but they should be as convenient as that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, it seems like the one thing that's really come out of COVID is people are kind of reconnecting with that desire to create and to build and to just start working with their hands again.
Yeah, I would agree. Although I'd go a little bit further than that. There's people are understanding the value in making things with your hands, and there's something that's a little bit therapeutic about that. But we're also starting to understand that we need, as a society, that we need to be a little bit more resilient, and we need to be a little bit more self-supportive, right? So this, especially in the early days of COVID, like the global supply chain just broke down, and we didn't have products that people needed in Calgary. And so as a makerspace, we stepped up and started making some of those, right? So why aren't we doing that more often?
It's interesting that you bring up kind of bringing the manufacturing local again, because we have kind of globalized it so much. Do you find that, just even outside of the COVID, that you were doing a lot of kind of fabrication for the local community as well?
Yeah, so we haven't been doing, there's kind of been two kinds of fabrication that we've been doing. So one is like, somebody needs a project built for an event, or for, I don't know, like a shed built for the Alex Food Center. We built a shed that they could grow, like a greenhouse basically. Signage for communities, that sort of stuff. That's one thing. The other thing is somebody comes up and says, I have a product I want manufactured. Can you make me 500 of these a month? So during COVID, we certainly saw more of the latter increase, right? That people, I can't get this material from wherever. So there's been a couple projects that we started doing that we're continuing to do. And there's a couple that we did during COVID that we don't do anymore. Just because there's no way as a makerspace that we can compete with people that manufacture at scale, right? If you have if you have a lot of automation and big expensive equipment, then it's very hard to pay somebody to manually do some of those tasks that would be automated away. And often, like one of the products we made was this half shield that was for teachers and stuff, that kids needed to be able to see their mouth, to see their faces, or salons when they were doing makeup, they needed to be able to see, like during COVID, they needed to have their face covered, but they also needed to see through it. So we were laser cutting and vacuum forming these Petchy shields that people could kind of put onto their face, and we put this little foam insert, and that was great. But for us to compete with people, we had to do these for like $4 a shield, and our input costs are like $2.50. So that gives you $1.50 to pay somebody to make these, right? And at that point, you're really racing to the bottom. So if we were getting paid $6 for the shields, then it would make sense. But once other big manufacturers get in and start selling them for $3.50, then all of a sudden we can't do it anymore.
So it sounds like, in terms of fabrication, it's less about kind of that mass manufactured, easy to automate type stuff, and more about like the handcrafted type things, or the prototyped devices or products that's kind of really where the makerspace fabrication environment shines.
Yeah, and at a certain point we could have. It was interesting to go through that experience, because we could have said, okay, we're going to invest in the machine that does these things, and then we would have been a mask making company. Did we want to be a mask making company? We did not want to be a mask making company. We love the idea of people coming in and doing these diverse projects and collaborating and all that sort of stuff. So we didn't really want to throw that away. Now, if somebody in the space wanted to start a mask making company, we would pass it all off to them and they could take it away. But the manufacturing that Fuse and Makerspaces and spaces like this are really good at are these kind of custom, just-in-time, kind of one-off manufacturing. And there are plenty of those types of projects around. And it's interesting because to begin with, like, a lot of people just don't know that it's possible. And then when you tell them it's possible, then the products come, right? So a lot of us, if we can't find things like on eBay or on Amazon or in Walmart, then that doesn't exist. It's not possible. But what we're trying to communicate out to people is, no, we can build something that's for you. It might be a little bit more expensive, but it'll last longer. You'll be happier with it. It'll enrich your life and the lives. You'll have a story attached with it. It's made by people and there's real value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of reconnecting people with their things instead of them being kind of this mass produced. I bought it at Walmart or on Amazon, and it was probably made and shipped out of China and whatever else.
Yeah, so there's a couple of examples. And the other thing is, when I say we make these, we don't actually make these. Like, it's members that make these. And so what we're doing is we're almost playing a matchmaking service. Oh, you have a product that you want of this sort. Let me connect you with somebody in the space that can do that, right? So Fuse is the makerspace. We're just kind of a go-between for those types of projects. We had a couple examples. There's a couple of First Nations jewelry designers, and they were making hand-beaded jewelry, and for really having trouble getting out of this kind of subsistence living environment where everything they made they had to sell right away because they were depending on that for income, and it took 6 hours to make a pair of hand beaded earrings, and you can't sell earrings for enough to justify 6 hours of work, right? That's the trouble, at least when all you're making is a small number of earrings. So they came in and we showed them the laser cutter and went through how to make stuff, and they were just blown away by the possibilities. And a year later, they were in several stores and they were dressing like singers and models, and they were written up in Vogue Canada. They were invited to showcase in Japan. They had just amazing success. And it's not like the makerspace is responsible for their success. We're not. They had the story. They had the product. They had the people that loved what they do. They're legitimate, right? All we did was we gave them training and access to tools and equipment that they wouldn't have had, and that was just kind of that catalyst for their idea to grow. And it's drastically changed their lives. So they moved to a nicer neighborhood. They've got their kid in school that they like, and they're able to afford a nicer house, and their quality of life. The stories that are coming out of the things that they're making are so inspiring, and I'm so proud that we could be a part of that, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is another project that I was thinking of is somebody their son died during COVID, and they wanted an urn made, and they wanted it to be specific to him. And so we connected them with a member in the space, and he took some of their son's drumsticks and cut them in half and placed them on the side of the urn, and then he laser etched a song that he wrote on the side of it, and he used parts of the skateboard. So because their son was an avid skateboarder, sliced it, and then because if you take a profile, like a skateboard is made out of several colored veneers, it looks really beautiful on edge. And so he made that as part of the urn. put a little, like a poem in it. Like it was just filled with personal touches, right? And it's something that they could never get. You could not get this by ordering off Amazon, right? And it was something that was deeply personal to them, and our member was able to, and he charged for it, but for him, he was a part of that story too, right? So for him, he didn't want to make a lot of money off this. He just wanted, our life is about building those connections and those memories and those stories, right? And so for him, it was, for both people now, their lives are both enriched by going through this, what was a tragic experience, but this is something that kind of made it a little bit better. And I'm again, Fuse didn't do that, right? We built the framework for it, and then we just connected people.
That's really incredible. And I think what I really love about this it seems to be the theme of Fuse, is that it's really about just creating connection through artistry and through.
You know what? It's artistry is a doesn't seem like a limiting term, but it's a little bit of a limiting term, because we have engineers working next to artists, right? Mm-hmm. So for us, it's about creating connections through passion. And I think, or maybe sometimes obsession. Like, if I'm going to be honest, but we really do see that, that's something that people can gather together around. Is we deeply care about this, and you know what? In the meantime, everybody is going to earn a living at the same time. I think it's a better way to live. Just frankly, there's a reason why Marie and I have basically been at the space for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for the last 2 years, right? Is because it's a life, it's a worthy life, I think.
Not just a hobby, not just something to fill kind of the time.
Or a job. I mean, we'd be insane to do this as a job. We are not getting paid for this, so it's more to us for sure.
What's the best way for people to find out about the space, connect with you guys, connect with the community?
You know what? Maria just set up a tour schedule. So we're trying to just keep it so that we don't have lots of people in the space at one time. So you can just go on to our website at fuse33.com, and there's, I'm assuming it's an easy way to find the tour. Yeah. And there's an Eventbrite link. So you just select a slot, and then there'll be somebody there that'll help you through. So right now we're doing it twice a week on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And if you want outside of that, then we can arrange that for sure.
So before we end, I just want to ask one quick thing, which is if you had any advice to give somebody who, they wanted to explore this side, they had no idea what was possible, what would you say to them?
Like a lot of people some people come into the space and they're like, I just want to make things. And then we're like, okay, what do you want to make? And they don't know, they just want to make things. That's a tricky thing to navigate. So what I would suggest is find a project that you're interested in as a starting point, or what we've done with several people, and it's been really cool to see how some people have thrived out of this environment, is people come on as volunteers, and then through helping people, they learn. And we actually have a couple people that are wizards at everything now, and they far outstripped my ability on the tools in the space. And one of them is a semi-retired she was a semi-retired business person, and the other is a programmer that just kind of was tired of doing that type of a job, right? And both of them are experts on like laser cutting and the Woodshop, and beginning to learn the Metalshop and 3D printing, and they're now upgrading the space for us, which is pretty awesome for both us and the members. But coming at it as a volunteer allows them to kind of experience other people's projects, and through helping them to learn for themselves. So I would say either one of those two is find a project that you really want to do, and then we can connect you with mentors that'll help you get to that point, or come in as a volunteer.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great advice. So you don't need an idea, or you can have an idea. It's really just for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody in the space has a certain amount of passion that they're dipped into, right? Mm-hmm. It's less I think successful if somebody comes in and says, I've been told, or actually that's not true. People sometimes come in and they're like, I got a job to do and I need to get this job done, and that's great. That's totally fine too. Those people have probably already found their passions, or they need tools and equipment, and those people often become mentors because they're deeply experienced in things, and that's great too. But yeah, I think passion is really at the core. If there's something that you'd really love to do, or you want to try, or you've seen other somebody else do and you want to learn it, come on by.
All right, great. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you for chatting with me this week.
Well, thank you. Good to chat.